Don't worry about it. Hey. Podcast is the day when people think about it. We got Kim Cain from Decatur, Georgia. She's a real estate agent for Keller Williams. And she's going to have a good conversation with us on when to buy, when you shouldn't buy. She's going to tell us what's the difference between refinancing and HELOCs, because, you know, we get a little confused about that sometimes. And we're going to ask her some different questions. And we got our co-host, Miss Audrey Bell. Miss Audrey Bell Kearn. So we're going to get into a little bit about it, and we got our guest here today, Miss Kim. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been in the real estate, and we'll go from there. First and foremost, we want to do your breaker question.
Okay.
So icebreaker. What does your icebreaker question say?
My icebreaker says, do you have any regrets?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. Actually, I don't have any regrets. You know, when you go through life, you may go through some ups and downs. But what I have found after going through things, that it always has a purpose. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any regrets with anything that has happened in my life, any choices that I've made in my life. I actually don't have any regrets.
Well, that's a good thing. Yep, that's a good thing.
It surely is.
So hit us a little bit about what you're doing, how long you've been in the real estate.
Okay, so again, my name is Kim Cain. I am a realtor and real estate agent here in Georgia, and I have been in the real estate business now about 12 years. Okay. So I started back in 2003, a little bit over 20 years ago, and did real estate full-time for about 7 years, almost 8 years, and then I came out and went full-time into the corporate workforce, and then I returned back to real estate in 2020 full-time. So I'm back 4 years in, so altogether about 12 years. So I primarily service the eastern side of the metro Atlanta area. However, I do service sellers and buyers pretty much anywhere in Georgia, as well as I have a lot of referral partners outside of the state as well. Okay.
Kim, you know, they just passed a new law recently, and where they are saying now that, you know, before you guys, the agent, somebody had to pay the agent, mm-hmm. and now they're saying that the seller has an option. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That would be the new lawsuit. That would be the outcome of the NAR, the National Association of Realtors lawsuit. And basically there was always the option for the seller to pay. But however, it has now become a situation where it is in writing, and make sure that each seller understands that they have the option to pay the buyer's agent. And so basically what that means is that in the past, when a real estate agent took a listing to help a seller sell their home, essentially if the agreed upon the commission was, say, 7% or 6%, that agent usually split the commission with the buyer's agent bringing the buyer. And now, again, our paperwork has always been there where the seller signs off to say you're agreeing to do that. But we're just, we're having to do the paperwork to make sure it's very apparent to all buyers that the seller has the option, and that they don't have to pay the buyer's agent fee. And so in the event that the seller chooses not to pay that fee, that buyer has to be prepared to pay their own agent. And so that's basically what it just boils down to.
I think that's a little so for the seller who's thinking, oh, I'm not paying, like, mm-hmm. As an agent, I'm kind of saying, well, I don't want to represent you, like, because what happens if you decide I've done all this work and you decide I don't want to pay?
Yeah, so but with that, the outcome of that lawsuit, that is an arrangement you make with your buyer up front. Mm-hmm. So prior to that, some agents may have went and shown properties, mm-hmm. or did work for relatives or friends, or even just people that they're trying to get as their client before actually putting them under a contract, before mm-hmm. putting it in writing. So now with this new NAR settlement, we have to, especially as realtors, those who are part of the National Association of Realtors, we have to ensure that every buyer, client, or potential client that we engage with, we have to have them to sign an agreement up front that talks about compensation prior to us actually showing them any properties. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were talking at we do a brunch, a business brunch on once a month, mm-hmm. and we have some agents that came there, and one of the agents had told us that they're like they did with the car payments. First, you used to do 48 months, then they went to 60 months, then they went to 72 months. So the months make it more affordable for people to be able to afford a higher end vehicle or something like that. And she spoke on us and saying that in the real estate game, they're thinking about extending it beyond 30 years to 40 years. And would you speak a little bit on that, dude? Have you heard anything like that?
You mean like as far as
mortgage.
The mortgage?
Yeah, the mortgage. Like they got 30-year mortgage, she said, and now I guess they're thinking about doing 40-year mortgages.
So that is not something that I can speak on because I'm not certain on that. And that's primarily because I have some great lender partners that I completely trust with my clients, and I don't really I try to stay in my lane regarding real estate. That way I'm not held to the wrong thing that I'm being said. I mean, I'll talk all things buying a house and how to buy a house and how to sell your house all day and night. But when it comes to the loan product, because it changes every day, I try to, just stay with the highlights. So that part I'm not certain on.
So back to buying a house, like right now the market is still pretty expensive. Do you see any? Do you guys get like a forecast about what the market could look like in a few months, or is this kind of like we play by ear, like we don't know until they know? Is that how it goes?
Well, we do get a forecast regarding the interest rates, so we can tell like if the we can't necessarily tell, but we get a forecast about whether or not there's plans to raise or lower the interest rates. We don't always know how much. We don't always know when that's going to take place or if it's going to take place because it's all political. However, we do know that the way real estate is pretty much a proven industry. So we do know that once the interest rates drop, then there's going to be an increase of buyers out. When the interest rates go up, there's going to be less buyers out because it's going to weed out those who are trying to be more strategic with their dollars. As far as the expensiveness of real estate right now, we're in the middle of just experiencing this post-pandemic inflation, increases in taxes, and things like that has taken place. I mean, there hasn't been a time before where pretty much the equity on houses have doubled within a short time span of like 4 years. I mean, people bought houses at $300,000 that are now worth $600,000 and $650,000. Within like 3 or 4 years. That has not been the case in the past. So
yeah, because I know just even riding around in different areas in Georgia, and the curiosity even hits me because you see when they're doing new development, most of the houses starting at $400,000. You go somewhere, and I know location means a lot, but you can go in some areas where is row homes. And they these townhomes, y'all call them townhomes in the South, we call them row homes up north. But they'll say we start at the high threes or the mid threes, and then by the time you go in there and add some baseboard or some crown molding, you have $400,000 on. Then you have these houses that start at $400,000. And I'm just trying to say, what kind of people out here, because they talk about the economy, who are affording these houses?
Well, I mean, the same people that was affording the $150,000 houses are now the ones that are affording the $300,000 houses. So, I mean, the loan products are set up to assist in it with that inflation rates and things of that nature. But the thing about it is that the prices, I don't believe the home prices are going to change. So what I was speaking of earlier with the post-pandemic, when those interest rates dropped so low, there was such an influx of buyers out, and people having to. During that time, we had clients that were paying $20,000-$30,000 over the list price to get the home just because there was so much competition. Well, competition drives the prices up. So once those properties close at those higher prices, you now have a new standard for the price, and it just doesn't go backwards.
Right.
Yeah, and that's just what it is.
So,
it's so funny because a lot of the people who, and I feel like a lot of the people who were able to buy those houses came from up north. Because when I got down here, I came down in 2013, and the house was $190. Now, the house has 7 bedrooms. And I asked the guy, "What's wrong with this house?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "This house has 3 full bathrooms and 7 bedrooms. Got to be something wrong with this house. That's the price of the house." Fast forward to today, $400,000 house. But when I first got here, it was like $190, and that was unheard of. And he asked me, "How much would that cost in Jersey?" I said $750. He said $100,000. Like, yes, it had 7 bedrooms. My house in Jersey was $399, and it was a nice house, and it was in the suburbs. But compared to that house, it was nothing. I'm like, that's crazy. So I feel like a lot of the prices was driven by that as well.
That is correct. We had a lot of relocation clients at that time from up north and from the west that were selling their properties there, coming here and able to buy cash, or able to put large, amounts of money down on the property. So that is correct.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what, but the people that were already located here, it hurts them more than it hurts the person that come from the east or the west. Because, like, I know I have a friend that's from California, and when he came here and saw the house prices, he bought a house over in Sugarloaf Country Club, cash, and he was like, they wanted like 1.2 million. He lived in a house in California, like Audrey was saying, he had 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and he ended up selling it for almost $2 million. And you come here and you see this ginormous house, and you're like, that's all they want? It's just like I tell people, like right now you see the gas prices dropping, and you get people to come from up north or from out west, and they paying almost $6-7 a gallon for gas. They're like $2. Man, fill both of my cars up. You know what I mean? So how do you get to a point of getting people to understand to make the adjustment?
I think that is, as time go on, we just naturally make the adjustments. Just like you mentioned, the gas prices. I was just telling my daughter, I remember when gas was 97 cents. Right. And it wasn't that long ago. It literally was about 10, 15 years ago. The gas was 97 cents. Yeah. And when it went over $1, there was like an oil spill, and it went over $1, and we were complaining. We were like, "Oh my God, gas is over $1," and here it is. Now we're paying $4 a gallon of gas. Eventually, once everybody start moving with the flow, you move with the flow, and that is basically the same thing in real estate. So eventually, everybody just moves with the flow. Yeah, I do agree with you that it kind of has priced some people out, but eventually, I think over time, what happens is the employers they catch up with how much they're paying their employees, and eventually the ones who are going to be able to purchase or who truly wants to purchase eventually are able to do so and are able to become first home buyers.
And you have some people right now, they're saying, I don't want to buy a house. Like, I don't want to buy a house. I don't want the maintenance. I don't want that stuff. So that's why I feel like a lot of the hedge funds have bought up the properties, and people are saying, well, I can still live in a house, I can still have a backyard, but I don't have to have the responsibility of fixing something. Right. And I hear that a lot.
I have heard that as well.
I hear younger people more so than anybody else saying, I don't need all that help. I want a house, but I don't want to have the expenses that come with the house. And so has the hedge funds who have bought up all of the real estate across everywhere, has that affected your industry and the way the agents get to do business?
It has. It has in the sense of, of course, when we were on the side of selling properties, 2 years ago, when we were on the side of helping our sellers sell the properties, whether it's to hedge funds or whoever, you're just trying to get your client the best deal possible, then it was a benefit. But now when you're trying to have your clients, when you're working with buyers to buy, it has not necessarily been the best thing because a lot of properties are owned by hedge funds or owned by companies and corporations instead of individuals who are willing to negotiate.
And those corporations and entities are driving the price of housing up. Would you say they're driving the house pricing up as far as, like they buy up these communities and says, well, you can't buy in here, you only can lease in here. So then they dictate all the terms of those properties, right?
Yeah, so I think that more so than the price of buying going up, they are definitely dictating the cost of rent and leasing. You know how much, because rent has also increased within the last 4 years. So you know, an apartment or a home that may have only been, you know, may have been, say, for example, a 3 or 4 bedroom home that was $1,200 a month, and now $2,000 a month. So that has been the thing. They have driven that up because there are a lot of people who are having to rent, and when you have to rent, you got to live somewhere,
right?
You know, so you have to kind of adjust and go with the flow.
I said my next home was going to be a Winnebago.
So
hey, listen.
Hey, if they ever try to repossess it, they're going to have to find me.
You won't listen. You will not be alone, because there are people out there who are nomads. Said, listen, I can go wherever I want to go, when I want to go, long as my engine and gas is in my car. So people are living like they want to live. Like, there are some people who want to live better, but you got other people who say, I don't want to live like that at all. I'll live in a Winnebago and do it. I'll live in a tiny house. Like, when it's, I was telling Lamar, so I was born in Albany,
okay,
right? But I grew up in, so I left when I was 12. I grew up in Jersey. But every time I go home, the same little house that was there when I was a little kid is still sitting there. And I'm like, that's a tiny house. We need to remodel those and sell them, because they're tiny houses. That was our house back then. Now that's a tiny house. So with industries like that, do you guys get to sell like tiny houses? Do you get to sell like these non-traditional homes? Like, there's a developer in Atlanta. She does container homes,
right?
And I know
them.
you have. Okay, so do you get to sell those? And are there regulations for those in Georgia?
So we do get to sell them. However, right now, because they are new to the industry, they are pretty much being sold by the developments that are, you know, the agents that are connected to the developments, developers that are building them, or that, you know, have those particular communities. So it's not like it's there's one in every neighborhood, and that's pretty much is the thing that opens it up to, you know, where there's a mass amount of agents that are selling tiny homes or things like that. Now, of course, we're able to take our buyers into those communities and help them buy a tiny home, or to help them buy a container home, or and they are great properties, but it's still something that's new to the community. I did want to also speak on the dynamics that have changed in like the first time home buyers. So first time home buyers traditionally may have been like younger people, but they have changed over the years. So some of the pricing that have been driven up is also the first time home buyer dynamics have changed. Right. They know the younger generation no longer wants to go in and fix up anything. They want everything already together, completed, and so they are like the people that go into these new home communities, and they love the new home communities because everything is fresh, new, and it's exactly the way they want it. And so that causes like a lot of the resale properties that may be considered first time, a perfect property for a first time home buyer in the traditional sense of what we were used to as far as either buying or taking our clients to a first time home buyer property. That has left those properties kind of, you know, just taking for a while to actually sell, because they are competing with the new homes.
Development, right?
Yeah, the new development.
You live in these communities that's been around for a while, and then here comes a developer. He puts like even you're saying, when the price have changed in the last 2-3 years, you bought a house for $200,000, and it's worth $400,000. But then you coming into a community where a developer,
brand new,
a half a block from where you live,
right,
put up a brand new and saying $400,000. So he's selling those brand new homes for what you're trying to sell your home
right,
for.
So the client is like, why would I pay $400,000 for this house when I can walk into this house and it has the quartz countertops, it has everything I need, everything I want, and I can just bring my friends over to see exactly the way I want, the way I'm living, versus having to, you know, fix up a new a resale home.
My daughter just sent me a house this morning. So we were talking about, so she has an 18-month plan, which now I think she's down to 15 months. But she has this 18-month plan, and she sent me some houses, brand new, gorgeous. And she didn't even look at an old house. It was like, she sent me two. One was like $499,000. One was $539,000. She's like, this is gonna be one of my houses. One of these is gonna be my house. But you're right. They don't want that. They don't want the fix up value. That being said, because that's not happening, is that driving the prices of those houses down, or are they just staying the same?
No, they're still staying the same because eventually there is somebody that wants the house.
Yeah.
And sometimes it may take just a little bit longer to actually sell it. But there's a buyer for every house. And that's the thing. So now if the seller is needing to get out quick, then maybe they'll sell lower. But for the most part, that house is going to usually appraise just the same as the new development next door, because it's because appraisers, they go by certain criteria. It's not about if this house is newer versus if this house is old. As long as the criteria is there. Now there may be some adjustments to the appraisal value. However, that house is pretty much going to appraise around the same as that new development as well.
So being in real estate as long as you have, what do you see the trend of being how long people stay in their homes once they purchase their homes?
Well, the trend used to be where if you purchased the first time, you purchased a home that you would, as a first time home buyer, you may have been in there 2 to 5 years, and then you were looking to upgrade. The trend is not necessarily the same anymore because of our market is different. This post-pandemic market is just completely different. So now we have you have two different things happening. You have people who don't want to move because their interest rates are so low. I got in here, my interest rate is 2%. 3%. Why would I move and buy a house, at 6.5%, 7%? And then you also have people who are moving for that equity, so they're like, well, yeah, the interest rate is going to be different. However, I'm about to cash out with $200,000-$300,000, so I'm moving. So with that being said, we're like in a place where we're building a new trend.
Right, because I know with my generation of my parents, they bought a house and stayed there forever. And tried to pass that same home down to you, and you were like, I don't want this because the new area of social media and stuff. And like you say, hey, I want my friends to come over and see what I have now. Right. I'm not moving in mom and dad old house,
Right.
So you actually kind of answered my question when I was going to ask you about how does that affect, like I was saying, that you've been living in this house for 6, 7, 10 years, and then they're building a brand new development a half a block from where you are, and your house is selling for $400. They're selling for $400. Like, it doesn't make any kind of deviation of what can happen or what kind of buyer can buy that home.
It doesn't make any deviation of what kind of buyer can buy the home. However, I will say that, like, as an agent going in working with a seller who is selling a resale that is near a new home, a new development, there's a different type of conversation. There is a conversation of like making improvements to your home. There is a conversation of making sure that the appliances and everything is updated, and just trying to make sure that house shows in a way that that the potential buyers, walk into that house with the same. And walk into that house and walk out of that house with the same feeling or very close to it that they would walk into a new home showroom. So,
it's interesting because when my uncle came down and bought his house, so I did show them all new houses. They didn't like any of them. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why y'all like the new houses? They found them a nice regular old house with a front porch that was real long, and they were excited about that. And I'm like, really? In my mind, I'm like, really? That's what y'all want? But there's something for everybody, like you said. And some people are just looking for character. Some people are looking for some land because their front yard was at least a quarter acre by itself, just the front yard. So he liked that, and they liked the fact that they had a front porch that they can actually sit 3 people can sit out there on the front porch and all these different type of things. So there's a house out there for everybody. So I do agree with that. What is the home buying process like now for first time home buyers? Because I know back then you find your house, you talk to your mortgage company, you get a pre-qual, and then you put down 3%, and is the process still the same or has it changed any?
The process is pretty much still the same. However, we do as any particular buyer or any buyer that I work with, we're going to get that pre-qual up front. So we don't go looking for houses. We want to make sure that you're shopping in the correct price range. There's a reason for that. You never want to just go out taking buyers out to just look at houses. If you show somebody a $600,000 house and then the lender come back and say they only can qualify for $350,000, it's not. There's no $350,000 house that buyer is going to like.
Right.
Because you just basically took them out there and showed them the world and said, come back
to reality.
Yeah. So basically we get the pre-approval up front. And then once we get the pre-approval, we know what range we're working in. And then we take them out, look at houses. But now that with technology, it's not one of those things where I'm bringing you a piece of paper and we're just running all over town. We can basically narrow down what houses we're looking at on the computer.
Like virtually. And then you can do all this virtual
That's
looking
right.
in the
So
house.
we know up front where we're going, what we're looking at, what's based upon the picture, based upon what they're saying the house has. So we know what each house we get to, we already know what boxes we're checking and what we're looking for. And then once the buyer finds the house that they're looking for, their agent, just as before, writes up the contract, writes up the offer, negotiations begin. Once they go under contract, then there's we usually try to include a due diligence period in there, which is an opportunity for your buyer to exit out of that contract regardless of for any reason. If they just woke up if we have a 7-day due diligence, for example, if your buyer wake up on day 4 and decide this ain't for me, I changed my mind, I moved too fast, that gives them that opportunity to come out.
How often does that happen?
A lot more than
Really?
it should. That we would like as agents, rather, not that it should, but at the end of the day, usually that period of due diligence, what we really want that period to be is for the opportunity for our buyers to be able to do home inspections, have any type of inspections that they need on that property,
Right.
to be able to make an informative decision of whether they want to move forward or to come out of that and try another property.
So let's say you do have a buyer that wake up on day number 5 after I done paid for my home inspection and the radon inspection and all that kind of stuff, and they say, I changed my mind. That means the buyer loses that money.
That is correct.
Wow.
And that is something that as agents we do, make them aware of. Like, this is your due diligence period. This is what we use this period for. However, it is also an opportunity for you to come out of this contract. And so we make them aware. We also wait, if it's a 7-day due diligence, which is kind of a long due diligence nowadays. But if it's a 7-day due diligence, we definitely make sure that I'm reminding you, hey, you got until Saturday, letting them know, because once that timeline is up, you're locked in. We're locked in, and then we move into the next type of contingencies, such as whether you can't, the other contingency would be like a loan contingency if you couldn't get the loan. Those type of contingencies. Outside of that, that's the due diligence is the only contingency that when we send over a termination, we don't have to explain.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. What would be your advice to a person that's a first-time home buyer?
My advice to a person that's a first-time home buyer would be would definitely be to speak with the lender. If you're preparing to be a first-time home buyer, you want to make sure you know what your credit is. You want to speak with the lender up front. And so that way, because that is the ultimate thing in the decision. Agent can help you find the home. An agent can help you write up the contract. We can help you do everything from A to Z. I mean, we do a lot as agents. We do a lot behind the scene that is not usually talked about. However, at the end of the day, there's nothing that we can do that gonna save that deal outside of that actual the buyer either having the funds to close this deal or they getting the loan to close this deal. Those are two things that are completely out of our control.
So you have to do your mathematical due diligence if you're a first-time home buyer.
That is correct. If you're a first-time home buyer, because a lender will let you know what you can what you can do and what you cannot do. And then that way you're able to move forward. The second thing I would say for a first-time home buyer is that when you are speaking with who you may think you want as your real estate agent, definitely interview a couple of agents. Don't just go with your cousin or your friend or somebody that you know that has a license. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will have a great working relationship together. And that's what you need. You need a working relationship. You need somebody that's going to be able to speak on your behalf, not necessarily just with words, but speak effectively and communicate effectively on paper, to make sure that they are negotiating for you, that they are paying attention to all the details, because the real estate process, there's a lot of paperwork involved.
Right.
And what I have found is that even with my own clients, there are a lot of people. You always tell people to read, but you could send them 20 pages and they send it back to you signed in 2 minutes, and you did not just read those 20 pages.
Right. I mean, but we all experience that. I mean, it's just like you go to a closing, and I had to explain to somebody. That's why they have a closing attorney there, because he just briefly read, "This is for this. Sign here." You know, initially this, that, and other, but you still don't know what's going on.
Right,
but if you sat there and read every single solitary paper that was there for you to buy your home, you would spend 30 years at the closing table.
You could, but what I like to do with my clients is I like to make sure that if I send them paperwork to sign, that there's also a conversation with me as well, even if we're not in front of each other, because there's a lot of e-signatures that we have to do now. I definitely do Zooms, or we're going to go through those each part of that. The paperwork you signed, we're going to paragraph by paragraph. So even if we didn't read every single word, you're going to understand what that paragraph is. Just and definitely, I highlight any type of any parts of the contract or any parts of the document that could come back and be controversial. If we added any stipulations or anything in there, I want to make sure that my client is aware of it, and we're going to initial it just to make sure that in case they didn't read it, they understand. And not every agent do that. And it's not just an agent type of thing. This is just like in life.
Right, like you just now
some
said,
people don't
watch who you
always
pick.
read. So you want to make sure that you are working with somebody that is going to go that extra mile and ensure that you are not signing something that's going to come back and hold you to something that you didn't want to be held to, because these are legal documents. From the time we go on the contract, you're signing legal documents that you're going to be held bound to those legal documents all the way to the closing table.
I want to flip it. So you've been in the industry 12 years. There are a lot of people look at this industry and they think it's sexy because they see selling Sunset and selling OC and Serban and all these different things, right? They think it's super sexy. I'm going to do that. I'm going to dress up. I'm look cute. Tell us a little bit about what to expect if you're deciding to become an agent in this industry.
Well, the first thing you need to expect is you're going to be doing a lot of work for free. So that's the part nobody talks about. I think in the end, especially with the NAR lawsuit that came out, that kind of put compensation in the forefront. And there were a lot of people that, they get paid a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But nobody ever talks about all of the details that go into that. So in order to, you can work with somebody. As real estate agents, we don't get paid until the deal closes. If the deal don't close, we don't get paid. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you was in working with somebody sun up to sundown for 9 months straight. If you get down to the nitty gritty and either they decide, hey, I don't want to buy, or I don't want to sell, or if the loan don't come through, you just work for 9 months. I mean, nobody pays for your gas. Nobody pays for your time. All of those are things that you put into your client up front for the return on the end.
And in that case, you don't have to pay your broker, though, do you?
So you don't pay during that time, but as a real estate agent, you are an individual entrepreneur. So your broker holds your license. And so everything that you do is out of your pocket. Your signs, your marketing, your everything. Marketing your clients' homes. When you are selling a home, There's nobody at the office that's gonna saying, oh, you want to sell, you want to put, you going to list this house? All right, fine. No, you got to go get your photographers. You have to do all the work. So all of that, you're as an individual entrepreneur, you are paying just like anybody else in business would be up front for the return on the end. So when you get that return on the end, again, you're taking your marketing out, you're taking all the money you spent out up front. And then you have to pay a broker fee, your percentage back to your broker, because essentially the check doesn't come to the agent, the check goes to your broker, and then your broker cuts you, a piece of the check. This is how compensation works.
So you don't have to give it; they already take it.
They take it because it ain't your check.
Right.
You go to close, and that check is not made out to you; it's made out to your broker, because that's really who holds all the liability. That's the reason they're holding your license. That's the reason why when we list a house, not only my picture may be on the sign, but the Keller Williams name's up there too.
Right.
Yeah. And it's bigger than my picture and my name for a reason, because they hold the liability. I'm an independent contractor of Keller Williams. So because they hold the liability, that check is going to come to them.
Right.
And then they do the splits out, the cutouts.
Well, we would say that the most important part is to do your math. Mm-hmm. Most people have to do, because you mentioned in being a first-time buyer, go to a loan officer first and make sure you can see what you qualify for. Mm-hmm. Then you got to do the math. You know what I mean? Then it brings you to some kind of reality. I always say that, like you said, okay, yeah, that's $600,000, because we all do it. Mm-hmm. We ride around in these communities and we see these developers putting up their house. We walk in it and we get the ooh-wee about us.
Right.
Ooh-wee, I like this.
Yeah.
But you may like it, you can't afford it.
That's right.
Because you didn't do your due diligence of your math. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what for a lot of people in today's society, we buy with our eyes and not with our math. Mm-hmm. Because the math is going,
math.
Right, and the mathematics is exact science.
Yeah.
So I think that what you gave was good information to people that's trying to buy a home, whether they're a first-time buyer or whether it's a buyer that's trying to get a home. I think that you gave some great information, and in giving that information, you can tell these people how they can get in contact with you. Miss Audrey, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, though, because I like what you were saying. So what I heard you say, and if you're thinking about becoming an agent, you need to think of this as a business. You need to have some money to start this business, to grow this business until the business can pay you back.
That is correct. Do not leave your full-time job without having reserves in the bank, because this is a business. It's no different than you deciding, hey, I'm going to open up a restaurant. You need to
have capital.
Yes, you need to plan out every detail of it. And so it's more than just going to get your license. It's more than taking a test and passing it. It is a business. And if you want to survive in this industry, because it will take, I will say it was going to take, at least the first 3 years before you really get your footing going in this industry. Now, of course, there's always outliers to that. There's always, a few people that may have an extensive network that can jumpstart them in the business, because, of course, just like with any business, the more capital that you have, the quicker you can, move forward in it. But for the majority of the agents, you have to build the capital. Yeah. You have to build the capital. And when you have a business that you have to not only work on building capital but still pay your bills, if you jump in it full time, then you're not able to build the capital as quickly. So it may take you about 3 years to get really going in this business. But yes, that is correct. Don't just jump up and say, I got my license. I'm walking off my job. Please don't do that.
Yeah, because you got all these fees and everything.
So please don't do that.
With the great information you're giving us, once again to thank you for being a guest when people think
You're
about
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
But we also want to let our guests and our audience know how they can reach out to you in case somebody's looking for a home or a first-time buyer. Okay. So could you give us that information once again, your contact information?
Sure. My name is Kim. Last name is Cain, Cain. My website is www.kimcain.com. I can be reached at 770-864-2795, or you can Google me on the web. I am a licensed realtor and real estate agent here in Georgia, out of Keller Williams Premier, Conyers, Georgia.
and Kim will sell you a container home or a couple of $1 million home.
Sell you any type
well.
of house you want to buy, as well as sell your house if you want to sell.
If
you know anybody who wants to buy, it doesn't have to be you. If you know anybody, whether they are actually here in Georgia or any of the states, I have a vast network of referral agents in different states. So if you know anyone, I can definitely connect you with a great agent to get you sold wherever you are.
Right. And we just want to thank you once again.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
like I said, you can reach out to us at peoplethinkaboutit.com if you want to stay in contact with us. If you want to be a guest on the show, just go to peoplethinkaboutit.com, fill out our guest intake form, and we'll have you on as a guest. You can also go to peoplethinkaboutit@gmail if you want to reach out to us. We also take donations. If you do a $25 donation or more, we'll get you a People Think About It t-shirt, one of the greatest t-shirts that's going around right now. So we want to thank you. We want to thank our co-host.
Nobody's there.
We want to thank our co-host, Miss Audrey.
Thank you.
So once again, we welcome you to, and we hope you guys come back and hear about us at People Think About It.